In 1901, an impoverished widow decided that she needed to create some kind of innovative earner. She became the first and oldest person to survive the cataclysmic plunge in a barrel over the Niagara Falls in the US. Annie Edson Taylor had already explored several career pathways before formulating her plan for the breathtaking feat, which was designed to bring her fame, fortune, and a secure future. Born in New York in 1838, she had trained as a schoolteacher, married, and had a son. Tragedy hit when her son died in infancy, and several years later, her husband perished while fighting in the Civil War. Taylor moved around, setting up a school for dance and etiquette, then teaching music in Michigan, and later travelling to Texas and Mexico, seeking job opportunities. By 1900, she had fallen upon hard times and was relying on financial support from her sister-in-law. She had seen her home destroyed in a fire and lost money invested with a clergyman. She later openly admitted that she eventually made the trek to Niagara to aid herself financially, as well as help support two friends who were also in economic straits. In an age of daredevils and stuntmen, Taylor had the notion of literally barreling over the falls to capitalise on a swarm of visitors in the area, attracted by the 1901 Pan American Exposition in nearby Buffalo. As well as being a popular tourist destination, Niagara Falls was also a mecca for risk-takers. Swimmers had tempted fate by swimming across difficult sections of the river, and tightrope walkers had strung high wires across the falls and navigated the hazardous span. At that time, a new trend was also underway, being tossed around in the whirlpool rapids beneath the falls in a barrel. Taylor decided that her claim to fame would be to extend the barrel stunt one step further by daring to plummet over the falls in said barrel. She later wrote that the idea of being the first person to ever attempt this feat came to her in a flash of light. Taylor was already someone who loved excitement, preferring outdoor sports and adventure stories to dolls as a child. She had already survived a few shocks, including her devastating house fire, an earthquake in South Carolina, and a violent hold-up by Jesse James' gang. A stagecoach in which she was travelling in rural Texas had been waylaid by the robbers. Even when they held a gun to her head, she refused to give them her money, having $800 hidden in her dress, and told them to blow away. They didn't, and she managed to hold onto her cash. Having had her revelation, Taylor immediately began publicising her intention to plummet over the horseshoe falls of the Niagara River in a barrel. She even lied about her age of 63, telling reporters that she was only 42, in the belief that the venture would attract more attention if people thought her younger. Taylor hired a carnival promoter to manage the event, aware that she needed someone to coordinate details and get the message out there. She designed her vessel herself, sketching a diagram and constructing a prototype from cardboard and string. A local company that produced beer kegs built the barrel, and she selected every piece of the white oak timber that comprised it. The finished product was held together with 10 iron hoops and padded with a mattress. The distinctively shaped barrel was less than 3 feet at its widest and tapered at either end. It was also weighted with a 200-pound anvil to keep it upright throughout its watery journey. Taylor needed to ensure that there was enough air in the cavity to last throughout the ride, so 2 emergency air holes were drilled in the top of the barrel. They had cork stoppers which she could punch out if necessary. In addition, when her assistant sealed her in, a bicycle pump would be used to inject extra air into the cavity for the trip. Cruelly, 2 days before Taylor's own attempt, a long-suffering domestic cat was sent over the falls in the barrel to test its strength and durability. According to reports, the cat survived the descent and 17 minutes after being retrieved with a bleeding head, posed with Taylor in photographs. One local legend actually states that the cat went over the falls black and came out white from fright. On October 24, 1901, Taylor's 63rd birthday, several thousand spectators gathered to watch as she and her companions set off in a boat towing her barrel, departing from the Canadian side of the Niagara River. According to some reports, a police officer had already tried unsuccessfully to stop the stunt from going ahead. About a mile before the brink of the falls, the crew pulled in at Grass Island, where Taylor removed her heavier clothing and climbed into the barrel carrying her lucky heart-shaped pillow. She was there fastened into a kind of harness that held her in place as firmly as possible. Pillows were wedged in on either side of her head to provide cushioning, and the lid was tightly screwed down and sealed in place. Then Taylor's friends used the bicycle tire pump to inject enough fresh air for an hour into the barrel and plugged the holes. Taylor's barrel was set adrift near the American shore south of Goat Island at about 4:05 p.m, according to the New York Times. The barrel sped along the river, sometimes passing out of sight of the crowd, but racing towards Horseshoe Falls, the largest of the three falls at the site. Taylor later wrote that she had feelings of suffocation as the barrel pirouetted and swooped along the rapids, with the roar of the falls growing louder. Finally reaching the edge, there was a brief spell of eerie calm at the top before Taylor felt gravity kick in. As she had predicted, the barrel paused for a suspenseful moment and then made the terrifying plunge from a height of nearly 160 feet. Seconds later, Taylor hit the surface and sank below it, the barrel spinning as it was tossed about before rising behind the veil of the falls. Water began to seep in as the barrel bounced off the rocks and was catapulted back into the churn. The mass of spectators and the rescue boat crew were all relieved to see the barrel bob up from beneath the falls. However, it took the rescuers another 20 minutes to position themselves in order to open the barrel to check how Annie fared. To open the barrel, the top needed to be sawed off, which took some extra time, but to great all-around relief, Annie Taylor was alive and talking. It had been about 1 hour and 20 minutes from the time the barrel was first sealed to the moment when the top was opened. Word of Taylor's success was shouted to the crowd by megaphone, and the river steamer, the Maid of the Mist, blasted its horn in celebration. Taylor had been bumped and bruised, had a 3-inch gash behind one ear, and possible mild concussion, but emerging from the barrel, she was able to be helped out and walk along the shore to the dock. A carriage took her back to her rooming house, where doctors checked on her throughout the night. Later she commented on her rough ride when she had struck rocks 3 times, felt inundated with water, and seemed to pass out momentarily as she went over the fall. She advised anyone else not to follow her example, saying that she would rather face a cannon blast than go over the falls again. Taylor was then caught up in a wave of instant fame. The goddess of the water, or Queen of the Falls, as she was variously nicknamed, made publicity tours, had poems and articles written about her, and was invited for numerous speaking engagements. She wrote a memoir and visited souvenir shops, selling her book and postcards of herself, sometimes posing for photographs. However, Taylor never earned much money from her celebrity status. An unscrupulous manager absconded with her barrel and even employed someone to impersonate her in promotions. Most of Taylor's earnings ended up being used hiring private detectives to track it down. Eventually located in Chicago, the barrel later permanently disappeared. Taylor spent her final years posing for photographs with tourists at her souvenir stand, but also working on further attempts to earn a living. These included reconstructing her 1901 stunt on film and writing a novel, neither of which saw the light of day. She briefly planned a second plunge over the falls in 1906, and even worked as a clairvoyant and marketing magnetic therapy treatments to locals. Although ending her years impoverished at the age of 82, her friends took up a collection to create an honourable memorial to her life and amazing feat, not to mention her scientific prowess in designing her resilient vessel. Annie Edson Taylor was buried next to other courageous risk-takers in the Stunter's Rest section of Oakwood Cemetery in Niagara Falls, New York in 1921. You may also be pleased to hear that Niagara Falls-related stunts have now been illegal since 1951.